Welcome to this interesting conversation about redefining experience. And with me today, we have some wonderful panelists who are really knowledgeable from the industry, from different sides or different aspects of the industry. Banker, a neo banker, and two NBFCs joining us and sharing us how they are redefining the experience in the financial services sector. We have seen that analytics, RPA, data, everything has really empowered this sector to take experience to the next level. At the same time, how scalable we are, how robust we are, how versatile we are will actually define how we are going to really create this experience of the future. And the more digital we go, the more the customers' expectations also increase. And how do we cater to these two things together? How to align this experience along with the kind of data experience and AI is what we are going to talk today. Uh, I will request Manoj, who is our editor, to take over the discussion.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Let's start with a brief introduction. Myself, Manoj Agrawal, Group Editor, Banking Frontiers, handling the magazine, the web, and the video, and enjoying all of it. So that's me. Who's next? Prasanna?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Prasanna Lohar. I'm from DCB Bank. I work there as a innovation, digital, and the architecture head. So great to be part of this session today, Manoj sir and Babu sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Prasanna. Welcome very much. Chaitanya, can we have your introduction?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chaitanya Wagh. I'm a CTO at JM Financial. I look after all infra applications, everything. So look forward to a good session.
Yes, me too. Thank you, Chaitanya. Anupam, can we have your introduction?
Hi, Anupam Bagchi. I am the Chief Business Officer for Jupiter. Jupiter is a digital-only bank which we are creating in sponsorship with a couple of banks in the country. So having an interesting time creating something which is disruptive and new.
Something new, different, wonderful. Thank you, Anupam. And Akshay, can we have your introduction, please?
Hi, good morning. I'm Akshay Danak, Chief Information Officer of Magma FinCorp. Magma is into a number of different businesses, starting with asset finance, housing finance, SME finance, and general insurance. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes,
thank you.
Same here, thank you. Ram, can we have your introduction?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Ramanujam. I had Pure Storage in India. Pleasure to be talking to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. So let me start with the first question. So like Babu said, our discussion revolves around data and the impact that it is having on business, on customer experience, on customer satisfaction, and even regulatory areas these days. The regulators are looking at data. So that is the reason why data is becoming so important in today's scenario. So data, my first question is this: what kinds of data are growing the fastest within the organizations? And do you find it easy or difficult to handle these new types of data that are growing most rapidly? Who would want to take the first shot? Akshay, would you like to start?
Sure, Manoj. So, across the different 226 plus processes that are automated, and a number of them which are already on the anvil of automation, the data is the driving force behind all the insights, whether it is coming real time, whether it is coming near real time, or whether it comes post facto. The sales systems, the front office systems are the portfolios where the largest quantum of data gets generated. And this is both in structured as well as the unstructured form. Given the nascent stage of the evolution that I am in terms of utilizing data, not just from the perspective of structured analytics, but also in terms of improving the overall quality of interaction and effectiveness of the engagement. I clearly see that the value delivery is coming from the front office applications. As far as the middle office systems are concerned, they pretty much rise in tandem, with whether it is talking about the credit assessment, operations risk management, and fraud risk analysis. These are the three areas which perhaps grow in tandem, with the front office data growth. In terms of the specific challenges, it is more in terms of deciding which data to keep for long and which data to pretty much archive. And then we have seen, because of our, the accelerated stages of evolution, more often than not, we are in a situation where the turnaround time to restore the archive data and use it for the purposeful analytics takes a bit longer than what the stakeholders would expect. And that's a very growth challenge, which is a good challenge to have.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I'm just curious, within the front office data that is being generated in the front office, is it more of transactional data or non-transactional data?
I would qualify it more as a behavioral data, which gets generated in conjunction with the transaction data.
Oh.
So, when you start with the maturity cycle, you pretty much start kind of bringing that transaction data more into an advent of purposeful insight. But as it starts becoming much more engaging, then you start looking at what caused this transaction or what did not cause this transaction, or whether the direction in which this transaction was to happen, which is more behavioral in nature. Whether the customer walked into the branch, customer contacted the call center, customer was approached by our field staff, or whether one of our channel partners engaged. And then in different channels or medium of engagement, what exactly has been the responsiveness of the customer. So that's the behavior data which is more critical and governs the outcome of the transaction. So as you start evolving from the maturity perspective, these are the questions that you become more interested in, and that's where the data comes into play.
Very interesting, short and sweet summary of that whole thing. Chaitanya, as another NBFC, do you have a similar perspective, or do you have something different to add?
No, I think as Akshay rightly said, see, the processes which are already automated or are on the verge of, that means it is already planned. We know the data source, we know what is getting captured, we know what to extract out of it to store and use it for further analysis. It's the behavioral part. I was going to use the word human interaction part. The data which is generated out of that, what my RM has discussed during the meeting, correct? And that's across all businesses, particularly in investment banking, which is a relationship-based business. How to capture that, whether the key highlights of that meeting are tagged properly so that it gets extracted as information to the senior management. I think that's where the more ambiguity but criticality lies, and that's where more of our thought processes are on as of now.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's come to the bank then. Prasanna, what do you see as, is it front office or is it something else? And
No, I think
before that, Chaitanya, any thoughts on the challenges in managing this kind of data?
No, so as I said, managing the data arising out of human interaction is a challenge, and we are focusing on.
Okay. Yes, Prasanna.
I think Manoj, we are sitting in it's a 2020 year, right? And I think somebody has said the data is increasing, and the data is now not remain as a small data. Data is becoming a big data, and maybe more than that. Why it is happening? Like earlier, customer used to visit only a branch as his transacting point to withdraw some cash or to do some of the branch relevant operations. And since last 10 years, we have added many more channels for his life. We have added ATM, that to interoperable ATM since 2010, followed by in last 3, 4, 5 years, we have added multiple other channels where customer can do transactions. Customer can do transactions on Phone Pay, Google Pay, or UPI kind of a landscape changing exercise which we did 3 years before. And after that, post demonetization, we have seen not only mobile banking, internet banking, customer can do transactions on many other services like Book My Show or Swiggy or Zomato, and this transaction is increasing day by day. Okay, so when same customer is doing transaction for you at a multiple banks or multiple endpoints or multiple apps, it becomes very important for bank to survive with that customer. How that customer who has opened a bank account with you, and how he can become a loyal customer to you. So you have to understand more about that customer. So you understand more about that customer, you have to analyze all the transactions which he has done on multiple channels.
Okay.
So your transaction data is becoming multifold now. To understand that data during a fraud risk, or to understand his data during a adaptive authentication or added a second factor authentication, or as what Akshay has said, right, about understanding or insights of those transactions. How do I really personalize experience for the customers to understand. When I understand customer is daily transactions on a particular channel, all of a sudden he shift to the some other channel, or based upon his aspiration to save how much he wants, we have to understand, give back the customer something out of that data. So to
Right.
understand the data, you have to create data out of that data. To that data size is increasing more and more, and the equation is like it will grow more and more here onwards. When more systems will come on a collaboration platform, or say example, we are going to go live with account aggregator or open banking or these kind of scenarios in future. Some of the banks are already there on open banking kind of a scenario. So your customer data is at fintech end, at your end, and at wherever the data is going on the hop. And with the rise of more aggregated or sharing and economy kind of ecosystems in future, the data will be available everywhere. So with the help of a blockchain kind of ecosystem, data is always there on all the nodes, on all the participating ecosystem. So coming back to your original question, for banks, data is very very important now. And to manage that data, to create or to have some kind of a framework or tools to manage that data, banks are really investing a lot. Banks are strategizing so that they become, or they will be one of those banks who are providing a better service to the customer. So ultimately data is there, but availability of the data, how to utilize that data, it all up for the customer, better customer experience. That's what I want to say in a nutshell. So it could be for onboarding of a customer, how can I use his alternate data, right? So not only is a transaction data, but data which is available on social media or any other means, how can we reutilize and create more and more better risk scoring for that customer during a lending. That could be one example out of that. Or data which is being utilized for is transactional data to see, to gauge. So far he was transacting from Borivali or Mumbai, and all of a sudden within a 1 minute transaction is coming from Chennai. So it is understanding of data and give back him a kind of adaptive authentication, second factor authentication. So data is not only around customer insights or engagements, but for a security purpose also data is being utilized. And the organizations who will have a better governance, better people, or better tools to handle this, I think they will be far successful in this journey. So advantage goes to the new organizations who just come with the new people or a new kind of infrastructure they can really build on immediately.
Okay.
But the organizations like the PSU banks, they have a challenge to revamp the ongoing digital journey, revamp ongoing architectures, and then you build on the data journey, big data journey, and so on. So I think we'll discuss that during the course of this discussion today. But Manojji, data is a key for here onwards. So that's what people usually say. Data is a new oil or a crude oil or something like that. And as well as data is a new green also. It's like your privacy or security. So data is important also. It's not only utilization of data, but security of a data also is very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Anupam, Prasanna has just moved the pointer towards you, talking about new banks and their advantages.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us from your perspective, what advantages do you squeeze out of data in new ways?
Yeah, I think Prasanna has covered the broader, complete spectrum of it. So, and one of the aspects it touches the need to create data out of data, and typically most of the fintechs want to do that, is to create data out of data. So I don't think so. So let us look into the life cycle of a consumer, right? I mean, onboarding was always happening. It used to happen manually. That data used to get into the system, and obviously it used to get into an electronic system. That onboarding data probably is not really changing much, but what is changing is the quality of the onboarding data, which is certainly improving, right? I started my career selling credit cards way back in 2001, 2002, when the quality of onboarding data used to be very poor. And today, whenever I have to do analytics on onboarding data, it is so much more simpler today when the onboarding of the data is happening directly by the consumer most of the times. But the change which has happened is obviously with consumer behavior is the transaction data, as Prasanna was telling, and this transaction data will keep increasing, right? I mean, in next 10 years time, where we land into transaction data, we don't know. But while we are creating a new organization or a new setup, I think there is a host lot of new data which is up in the anvil, right? I mean, you take consumers location permissions, you take SMS permissions, right? And then you take other permissions with whether it is with respect to bureau or pinging the bureau every month, and so on and so forth. So therefore, there is a lot of aggregation of data which is happening, right? So the biggest challenge I feel when is one is the PII SPDI process as to how to classify it, not being a licensed entity, therefore how to build guardrails around it, how to get banks agree to understand that this is secure, and the most important part is that how to segregate data in the ecosystem. And sometimes there might be a player A to a player B in any aggregation based businesses, which I'm sure Prasanna is also handling quite a few of them, is to how to ensure that this data is segregated in respective worlds. And kind of all our CTOs, I'm the only business guy, so I probably I will not be so well versed with the technology part of it, but finally the segregation of data, which can lead to a huge cascading impact, right? And you can be out of business in a span of very shortly. Probably nowadays it's in days you can business. So that's what we are seeing, is that there is data, onboarding data quality is increasing, transaction data volume is increasing, and alternate data is the new stack which is getting on top of it. And I think that's the biggest part. And if you overlay privacy or on it, or basically data security on top of it, that's where the complexity and the challenge comes into play. And if you are not a banking entity, then the complexity probably arises from a building the trust perspective, both from a B2B perspective and B2C perspective.
Got it, Anupam. That's also interesting.
Yeah.
Let me come to Ram. Ram, having heard these four banking specialists, BFSI specialists talk about their perspectives on data, what do you see as a technology company? To how is technology reacting to the business drivers for accumulating all kinds of data, for classifying all kinds of data, for making available all kinds of data almost on a real-time basis? Because, for example, for security, you can't wait, after the transaction is over. So the privacy, security, customer requirement. How is technology responding to these data challenges
Yeah.
or expectations from data?
Yeah. Thanks, Manoj. It's interesting. We were just having this conversation before the formal session started. Anupam, Akshay, me, and so on, right? And one of the comments which was made was that the entire banking is changing. I mean, we possibly every decade it undergoes a shift, right? So I'll just borrow from that actually. So the shift is actually happening possibly in three fronts if you look at it. The type of consumers, the type of customers which a bank entertains has completely changed. It is pretty much the 18 to 30 year olds, who possibly are the largest target segment, and they constitute pretty much 65% of the population of the country. Their needs and wants and type of access is completely different from somebody like me. Though I consider myself to be, unlike my father, I consider myself to be a little more tech savvy, but my children are completely different, right? That's one. The other one, which is obviously undergoing a shift henceforth, is the app space. The applications are so different from what it is even say 5-6 years ago, 10 years ago. And then coming to the data, right? Data was extremely structured. 80% of the data, or possibly even more, was structured not even 10 years ago. Right? Whereas, to the point which Akshay made, saying, and Akshay, I'll possibly use that term as I go, is, the behavioral data. So that is going to be the dominant data component across or all decision making henceforth. So the question then becomes is how do you design the platform below, which can handle this sort of a behavioral data and feed it to any application which may ask for it. It can be a reporting application, it can be somebody like a Swiggy, or it can be somebody like a Book My Show, like somebody said. Anybody can be accessing that particular data formats. So you should be making it available to whoever requests for it under the security regulations and all that. Right. So those are the sort of technologies which are beginning to be available now for most organizations.
Okay. Can you give us a glimpse into those technologies? at a very
Yeah,
macro level?
to give an example, we do something like we call something called a data hub, and here we say that you just really don't bother about what sort of a data you're planning to store and what sort of applications are going to access it, and they can be within the premise or they can be possibly from the cloud and so on. So you can get them to be accessed from any applications, like I said, homegrown, on the cloud, new fintech applications, and whichever else, right? And you can have them. You can define the security policies for each of these data formats, and you can define the security policies for every form of access which happens onto these data platform, what we call, right? Just to add 30 more seconds, right? Consumers today access it from any sort of mobile, right? You don't know whether it's a iOS, whether it's an Android, whether it's a Windows phone, whether it is any other device too. And you're going to have cars very soon trying to access, maybe in the next 5 years, right? So it has to be access agnostic, if you would like the term. So so that's what is happening.
So data has to become agnostic of the ecosystem and the application, but still fully controlled and secured. So given the vast, so thank you all. Let's move on to the next topic. So we talk of 3 V's of data: velocity, variety, and volume. And each of those pose different challenges. Do you generally see one kind of solution helping you with all these 3 different challenges? Or do you find different silos of solutions or different vendors, like an operating system vendor, database vendor, some other kind of vendor, giving you different solutions for volume, variety, and velocity of data? Let's start with Prasanna this time.
So I think very good question, Manojji. I think now again it all depends upon what is that use case or business case organization is driving around that data. Say example, if I want to drive it a customer 360-degree of a customer, so that I understand the customer's transactional data, customer profiling or a personal data, as well as the data which is coming from the other means like alternate data and so on, and I create a 360-degree out of for that data. So for that purpose, there are various tools are available as a part of a big data journey, or there are open source tools also, Hadoop and all. And within that, there are different tools available, different frameworks available in the whole ecosystem. And the dynamism of this whole ecosystem, it's changing very fast, right? Today, if I am working on one Hadoop, or there is another tool which is coming for Spark to take out the data and to give the some kind of alerts around that. And these tools are really changing fast. So I think at a granular level, organizations usually go for a stabilized software, so stabilized tools. Right? Say example, IBM comes with a complete suite of everything, wherein we can have all the data, like extraction of data, creation of data lakes around that, and creation of various, based upon the again it based upon the type of use cases which I have. The ultimate use case will be like, I am entering in a bank branch, and my branch manager comes to know that Prasanna Lohar has entered, and moreover Prasanna Lohar is so happy today or maybe unhappy today. Based upon his mood or gesture, I go back and greet him and tell him, name, Mr. So and so, welcome, and this is something is available for you, how can I help you? So I think if you understand, it's like a real time giving predictions to the end user as well as or a supporting staff. So I think that's the ultimate journey I would look at, how to understand data. There are various tools, mechanisms, but I think for any organization, if they want to get into this, they should have a good expertise around data. They should have a 1 or 2 champions who understand the overall architecture of the organization and the various data points from wherein he has to capture the data for that use case. Once we have a good people, and he can build another team under him and create a structure, and based upon use cases, he can keep on growing the whole journey. I think that's could be the one way to look at it, and also have a eye on futuristic journey. I think Mr. Ram has rightly said, it's not only human being gonna be your customer. Your devices also gonna be a customer tomorrow. Devices attached to those customers. So I think people will learn through this exercise. Start with a small and have a bigger view to really create a data journey around in your company. So the way we had only CTO or some specific officer earlier in the IT companies or in banks, now the role is getting into multifolds. So for a data, some of the organization has AI officer or a data officer who is really dealing with only analytics and business analysis, and some of the banks have adopted that culture also. So I think Manojji, to answer in a nutshell, you should have a good people, good governance structure who will decide what is which is that and which is the tool will take it to the data journey in the next level, and keep on improvising it based upon how market is doing, how competition is doing, and keep eye on various tools which are upgrades within that tool which are coming up. Yeah.
Okay, that's great, Prasanna. The use cases, governance, these kind of things will help, and the growth plans, future growth. To encapsulate what you said. But if I ask Chaitanya to put the technology behind these use cases and governance, so in terms of managing the data, what kind of tools are becoming popular, and how do these tools? How do you choose tools that help you with not just data management but governance and use cases and something else?
Correct.
What do you
So
see
for
as the most
right.
common requirements coming to you as a technology guy?
Okay. First, let me say from the last session, I normally data is the old term which I had heard already, but I like the new term which Anupam coined, data out of data. Correct.
Yes.
And as you asked as you asked the question initially, naturally different systems in the organization has different kind of data, more transactional, sometimes more static, but more informative or more informative, as in business CEOs can make use out of the data, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And certain applications are, for example, mandated by regulation. So we need to have certain vendors through which we go for the system, certain systems we in-house build. So that's how the data lies in different systems and different ways, different format. To the question, yes, then as Prasanna said, you need to have the tools and people who understand the information. What information is to be picked out from that data, and not just from IT point of view. Now, to the second part of the question, yes, then you have to decide which kind of tools to be used. Whether you need to collate data, then you need to go for a data lake or data warehouse and then data lake, or if we just building dashboard for certain particular business unit using that business unit's data, then certain BI tools will do. But overall strategy needs to be looked upon as a whole organization point of view, because this data, although will lie into different systems with different type of data, finally sometimes it's one customer who uses this, has given us data across multiple businesses, particularly in NBFC.
Okay. Okay. May I now come to Anupam? And Anupam, historically we had two kinds of application, OLAP and OLTP. OLTP was a transactional application, OLAP was an analytical application. In the current scenario, or maybe looking at 2, 3, 4 years down the future, do you see that distinction remaining, or do you see these kind of applications merging? Because the way I'm seeing you guys describe, OLTP is not looking just as a small pool of data, it's still looking at a huge pool of data. And OLAP always anyway used to look at a huge pool of data. So is everything becoming OLAP? And if that is the case, then how does the underlying technology, I mean, do you use a traditional then core banking, traditional applications, or even your core applications become OLAP oriented?
No, I think that differentiation still remains, right? When we are creating a new stack, I think what we are doing is, as far as transaction data is concerned or transactions are concerned, we are not really touching the historical method of in which the transaction data generates and the way transaction data is stored. So that something is not getting changed. But what is certainly getting changed is that is we classify data as old data and new data, right? New age data and old age data.
Okay.
So the new age data which is coming, that is certainly getting changed in terms of how the storage is happening and how the accessibility is happening. But the critical point is between the two datas, how the merging of the data and accessibility of data happens for a use case is the most important aspect.
Okay.
And that is where, I have worked in a bank for a very long time. So that is where I think the new age organization will score over in terms of syncing of these two data into either creating use cases for business and giving benefits to a consumer, or creating other infrastructure rails of security, privacy, and doing that activity digitally in a perfectly secure manner. So yesterday, for example, when we were chatting, we spoke about the chatbot piece and remote servicing model, where finally when you have to do remote servicing either through an agent or through a chat, then you basically have transactional data and you have behavioral data. How do you merge it real time and give a secure layer for the consumer, as well as in the banking world, the entire secure stack to transact is important. So I think convergence is the most important. I think the data too, that both the data will be generated differently, but convergence is important, which we are trying to create.
Okay, okay. Got it. Thanks for that interesting clarification. Let's go ahead then. How does data platform, how does your current or emerging, let me come to Akshay then. How does your current data platform or your emerging data platform that you visualize in a 6 months or 1 year or whatever down the road handle all this new data as Anupam described, and also data created from data? Are you creating new kind of platforms for this, or your existing platforms are able to scale up and meet the business requirements, business and governance requirements? What is your view, Akshay?
I think that's a wonderful question. And even when I'm looking at, how do I structure the answer, there are so many things just start popping up. So, from the context perspective, Manoj, there is a fundamental where I think the architects in the organization and the corresponding governing business case for investment have to align in terms of those principles. So whether the principle is to bring organization data in one place, which is where the traditional technology stack, like data warehouse or data lake right now, really kind of address to, and bring the processes around the centralized data store.
Mm-hmm.
Or you take a completely different philosophical approach where you say that, my data is going to be very difficult because of volume and variety to be pulled together in one place.
Okay.
But looking at the nature of the use case, I will just kind of, create this small, data stores and data processing units as verticalized silos, so to speak, and then attend to the requirement of the use case. And frankly, the entire end use organizations and the fraternity that we belong to have been grappling with one versus the other. And then taking a look at the merits of the the solution and the qualification of the problem to decide which solution will really work well. So let me put things in perspective. So within Magma itself, we see there's a big shift which is happening as a part of this stage of transformation that we are into, where we are moving from small number of large applications with long shelf life to large number of small applications with very short shelf life. Now that's a principle that we agreed to. Now what it means is that the tool stack, gone are the days when perhaps you would take a look at capital expenditure and get a perpetual license for certain software to solve a particular kind of problem. Then after 2 to 3 years, you try to find problems to fit the solution that you've already procured. With the advent of cloud, we have already pretty much put these hassles behind us. Of course, it creates a challenge in terms of data movement. It creates a challenge in terms of having the right skill set. So in our case, for example, there were 3 critical subject areas where we really wanted to solve the problem using analytics. One was about cross-sell. Second was about risk, and I'm talking more about the the risk of defaults or NPAs rising, collection efficiency deteriorating. And the third was about improving the efficiency with which we roll out the financial and the regulatory reports. So as the volume starts growing, your regulatory obligations also kind of grow. And that's an area which you always have to say yes to. So within each of these realms, coming back to those principles, we decided that we will take a look at the right tool for the right problem, rather than just hardwiring our mindset. We will take a look at the the cloud technologies in terms of solving a problem at a point in time. We would also invest in our skill sets, both organically as well as with our partnerships, so that we are able to solve the problem more purposefully. And because these are going to be having very short shelf life, we would also align our investment horizon and investment appetite accordingly. But the idea is right solution or right tool for the right problem at the right time. And that's what I think the philosophy has been.
That's quite a 180-degree turn in philosophy, but it's beginning to make sense in the current scenario.
Yep.
Let me come to Prasanna, since Akshay talked about architecture, and I think architecture is your role here at DCB. How do you see, implementing this kind of architecture that is very fluid, as opposed to a static architecture that used to be very prevalent earlier? Short life, large number of applications, any application interacting with any application or with any data. So everything is kind of fluid in that flow. How do you create a fluidic architecture?
So I think it's a for architect now it is always easy to job for this. Maybe for somebody who doesn't understand technology, for him it may be like how they do it or something like that. But when architect look at all these systems, he feels passionate about these complex integrations. Okay, that's how architecture's mindset is all about. That's why to have a right architecture is very important for any organization. It's very important, Manoj, how organization is building many systems within a bank. Say example, a bank which is starting a journey of a digital transformation in 2020, and which is a legacy, right? And it all depends upon what type of organization we have. Say example, a bank who doesn't have a UPI today, or a Bharat Bill payment system, or any of the payments, and these systems are going to come in the future. Now it's very difficult for that organization to decide on the data strategy, because you are not sitting on your complete data sources. Say example, in a bank who has already have a NEFT, RTGS, or I'm just giving one example, right? A payment as an ecosystem, UPI, BBPS, APS, or as a part of that bank strategy, they are built on all types of a payment ecosystem, including mobile and internet banking. It means that you have a right architecture in the back. Now, how these systems are talking to each other is also very important. Are they talking with the right kind of architecture through APIs or microservices or a database kind of a linkages? That's also very important. If they are talking to each other through API kind of architecture, it's a good architecture, I would say, for that bank. In a bank, if you have a kind of an ESB, enterprise service bus, which takes care of all the as a backbone for a communication between your channels and to your backend systems. Mobile banking talking to the IMPS through only ESB, or internet banking talking the same API through the ESB. So if you have this kind of architecture, well and good, so it becomes very easy for a data architect to come into the role, right, and to understand which are the
ESB both are good.
So if you have a right architecture in place and a right databases in place, right, if you have a RDBMS like structured database, unstructured database, if you have only oracles or SQLs, if that view is there pretty clear, then for a data architect who is coming in tomorrow and creating your data lakes and big data kind of a journey, it's very easy for him to do the whole thing. So now he has to understand based upon, again, business case. Suppose I start a business case where I want to see what is the performance of every branch and how the customer is doing around that branch and various channels. So for that purpose, I need to get a data from a core banking. I need to get a data from that customer's data, which is in from multiple other systems like mobile, internet, ATM, POS, so on. Ultimately, core banking could be one way where all the financial data is available. Now you have to whether to take all the data or chunk of data, or to have a provision of that data in the future. How to, so it's very wise data architect role is important to create a data lakes and within Hadoop and so on. Now there are two ways of mechanism. How do we extract the data and put the data into data lake, and how to utilize that data and give back alerts to the various your other channels ecosystem,
Right.
wherein you have a system like Spark or something which will come into the picture. So I think right architecture, right data governance is very helpful for a data architects who are building this tool. So I think for organization, if they are building from scratch, it's good to have a new people or a new data architects and build a new team. But if it is an existing architecture, existing systems, try to as I think Akshay also said, reskill your people. If your architect is a technical architect, let him know more about Hadoop or more about big data. Let him understand that. Let him be part of a deployment or some kind of a real-time use cases with the help of a Kafka kind of tools. So I think as a part of a journey, he will understand, and he already knows the domain and the the data, because knowing domain is very important for any of the data architect. Otherwise, he will not gel with your data to the business case. So I think to have a for an existing organization, let's go with the existing people and build a complete governance, reskill them, hire some of the experts and it's very important to understand how you are going to play your data strategy in the organization. At times, some organizations give this contract to the some of the third party systems, right? And because your data is very important and the data strategy is very important, try to in-house it, because it is going to be there for years together, right? If you're outsourcing it, your other people or external people will know more about your data and more about things, and it could be another way to look at this the whole data journey. Because as this journey is starting now, you can always invest on people, process, technology, and you can create your own data company within an organization and live with it, that because your core banking then becomes a digital core banking along with your this big data or kind of AI kind of initiatives. That could be one way to look at it. But coming back, I think in a nutshell, Manoj, have to have some champions who knows your architecture or different system from the data is getting extracted should be part of this overall journey.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I like that concept of a digital core banking also, because that makes it more customer centric. I want to come to Ram with two questions based on what Prasanna and Akshay said. One is, how is data management system aligning with or enhancing the desired architectures that these gentlemen have talked about? And second question is, when banks or financial organizations talk to you about your solutions or how you can help them, do they bring architecture into the conversation, or they are more interested in just your products and solutions? Or are they looking for an architectural fitment or an architectural alignment for solutions from you and people like you?
Yeah, so I'll take the second one first. It's been a constant journey if you look at it, right? I mean, it's not been a let's take a modernization or upgradation or a refresh right now and then we're done for a period of 5 years, 7 years or anything like that. It's not that way. It has been a sort of a constant evolution, if you would like to call it, right?
Yes.
And over the period of time, technology has also evolved. I mean, there are today from vis-a-vis where we were even 5-7 years ago, technology has come a long way to actually to be able to serve the open architectures which are the demand now, right? Like I said, if you don't know who's going to access at what point of time from where, you definitely can't have a defined application interface. You need to have an open application interface with a whole bunch of security restrictions and so on. So that's what technology has. It is available right now, right? And coming to the point of the to the data management, the data management solutions now are sort of can coexist with a whole bunch of things which are already in place, right? And at the same time, help you interface with some of the modern technologies like the cloud, right? Or the modern technologies of open source and whatever else is coming in as we go. So the new data management technologies allow those interfaces to be built at the same time working along with the traditional architectures which are already in place. Reskilling, yes, to some extent, but at the same time, these are so user friendly now. Just to give an example, we ourselves talk about setting the whole infrastructure up in 20 minutes. In fact, the system, there's nothing which you can see outside. Right, there are just some 6 cables which come out, with you plug into the network, you plug into the power, you plug into the rack and so on, and you're up and running. So those are the 6 cables which come from as part of our system. So they're absolutely user friendly of late.
Okay, but optimizing whatever, I mean, I'm sure that your solutions are not plug and play in the sense they are self-optimized, or are they?
They
you
are
have to do that manually,
highly intuitive,
according to the customer.
Nowadays it's, and everything has become sort of a GUI front end. You feed in saying that I need this application or this levels of performance and so on, and the system configures by itself. So there's so much of AI being built into each of these systems, while at the same time there is an AI engine at the back which is connecting and sort of doing the configurations or helping the administrators tune the system properly and so on. So there's highly intuitive technologies nowadays available.
Let me take your point to Chaitanya. Chaitanya, if vendors are coming up with as a CTO, there was always the issue of choosing between this technology and that technology, or this vendor's technology and that vendor's technology based on technological superiority. Now with technology changing very rapidly and the shelf life of any solution or product or technology being kind of short, the way Akshay described it, as a CTO, how do you choose, how do you make choices? Because the traditional parameters based on which you choose perhaps may not be so relevant. You probably want a partner who is more agile than a partner who has very good but static technology. Or like Ram said, the system self-configures is very easy to use, has a very good GUI. Some of these to me sound like very non-tangible parameters, right? Unlike saying this has so many CPUs, so many megahertz, so many megabytes, not very, those are very tangible parameters. As a
Correct.
CTO, how do you see non-tangible parameters making a difference in technology decisions, in major technology decisions?
Right. Sure. So I'll take a little bit from where Prasanna left earlier, saying the importance of having a proper person who understands your data and how to make use out of the data. Correct. So I'll now, and since the discussions about data, I'll first see that what exactly I need to do out of the data which is available with me. Correct.
Okay.
In different systems, transaction format, document format, etc. Once I'm clear with what I need to achieve out of it for business benefit or for getting information out of it, then I'll naturally, because today, as you rightly said, there are so many technologies and there are so many partners who will come and keep on showing you either demos or ready to do POC, etc. So there is no doubt of that. That is widely available. But unless you are not clear on what you need to do out of your data available, all these technologies and partners and new things available will not help. So I'll first think from that point of view, what I need to achieve, what is the end result. Once that is clear, then meeting those partners and choosing which technology to do is little or much simpler than the first decision. Now, how normally I would go about it is, yes, either I go with the traditional IBM or established players, or I'll also look at the new players who are on the block and ready with AI and ML kind of technologies, which will be of a great help. Yes, so there is a trade-off between established players and the new players. That is one part. All the new technology today, these are clearly, I think, around 4 or 5 years ago, days are gone now where you pour into the capex and you build heavy systems, etc. Right now, today you use everything out of the cloud, be it AWS or Azure and all that. So that the infrastructure is again much simplified, easy to use, etc. So there is no complexity there. So choosing the right partner to work on the data is more crucial. And there I would rely more on a new generation partners who understands it more better and have tools and systems which are much better than the established players or the traditional systems.
And what follow-on question is that the traditional role of a CTO was always there to optimize things. Because once you buy a server and a rack and the whole infrastructure, you want to optimize it with version upgrades and new technologies and new architecture. Does that role?
Yes, I think that role.
That sense.
Given on the infrastructure side, that if you just focus on infrastructure side, then I don't think you'll have a role. Okay. Because infrastructure is so simplified for last 3-4 years, be it from virtualization 7, 8 or 10 years ago to HCI now, and now available everything on cloud, correct? So in infrastructure, there's really not major role. What really is required role is on the understanding your business. And as Prasanna said, your existing team members who has the knowledge, be it at the CTO level, one level below or mid-level, whichever level, where they understand business so much that they can then work with business or tell business, yeah, if this data used in this way can help you achieve this result or even surpass what you do, or create a key distinguisher for your business, key competitive advantage out of that data. So that's the key role of CTO or CIO or head of IT has become, not just what to do on the infra side.
Got it. Let me come to Anupam. Anupam, since yours is a new bank, and one of the trends obviously is that more and more technological thinking is moving from IT to business. Business is becoming more IT savvy, technology savvy, application savvy. And in the current scenario, I think we can say business is becoming more data savvy. What is your thinking on making systems, designing systems in such a way that the data savvy business people can actually do something meaningful and not rely more and more on IT or traditional technology teams, but manage on their own?
Yeah.
How do you are you and you and your bank creating the new systems in that way that power shifts kind of to the users, to the business users?
Yeah, I was actually while we were having the conversation, I was thinking of that whether this kind of a question will come or not in this deliberation, because we are talking about stack technology and stuff like that. But probably Prasanna knows there is a fintech startup which only does data availability in the existing organization to the management team on a real-time basis.
Wow.
Because all this talk of data which we do, finally, most of the times in larger organization or structured organization does not translate into availability. And obviously, there is sometimes a layer between the tech and the business, which is the data analytics or data science team as well. And an existing organization have some bureaucracy or some legacy in that place also. So that is how the existing availability of data is there. But certainly the erstwhile organization are not functioning like a new age organization, and that's where it's a cultural shift which is required, and which obviously we don't find those legacies to be there. So therefore, what we will find in a new age organization like Jupiter is that so let us first come to consumer. Give the consumer a high level of choice of what data he wants to give and what data he does not want to give, what he wants to receive, what he does not want to receive. So that is the big empowerment part on the consumer side of it. Next comes the business benefits, or basically portfolio behaviors which you want to drive, or what you want consumers to do, right? So it is just like we were seeing that web series called Social on Hotstar. I just forgot the name. So where you want what they are doing is actually what you want the consumers to do. So we were so therefore the next layer is utilizing this data to let consumers, and how real time you can do that, right? And we have been talking about this, I think, for ages. But still, in the banking infrastructure, we don't have an experience of that, right? I mean, you don't see a movie when a mall is like an outcast at this point of time, but you don't see a movie in a mall and say that, hey, dine at this place because DCB Bank has a great offer in this place. It does not still happen in a very structured manner in that sense, right? So that is the real-time application of data, what is going into the new age data and old age data, combining together in terms of convergence, which I spoke before. And third is, how do you use data to minimize or basically make the organization leaner, and especially in terms
of someone has some background noise.
So how do you make the organization leaner with respect to people, processes? So how do you do that? So for me, at this point of time, my biggest example is service. I think every bank has almost 1,000-seater, 500-seater, 1,500-seater. I think the sales and distribution part will already go digital because then people will be reduced dramatically. But on the service side, again, this data, which place the consumer in it, what device the consumer is using, how is he authenticating it, what is the authentication tool I need to use. So this data consuming into giving a greater service to a consumer remotely and in a more efficient manner.
Okay.
So these are the three attributes which I see. and which a new age organization, we don't have handicaps doing it. We certainly have handicaps convincing the banking ecosystem that this is safe and secure. But that's how, we are trying to make it happen.
Okay. I want to come to Ram with one question. How do you measure your ease of handling data and the controls? Your traditional measurements of data of size, megabytes, and all that doesn't make any sense in the business context. Your traditional concept of total cost of ownership is becoming more and more important because the data volumes are growing. The need to have more skilled people with different kind of skills to manage the data is growing. So what kind of concepts do you see that can give all this some kind of measurability from the business perspective? How can an organization benchmark itself versus another organization, two similar organizations? One is managing its data more efficiently. Is there any kind of, or maybe Prasanna has an answer, or Ram, or anyone, any open-ended question? Anyone has come across some kind of measurability to your managing the data more efficiently and effectively?
As a consumer, like if I put on the hat of a consumer, customer right now, I would think that any vendor for that matter would want to be, I would look at a vendor, right, who makes the right decision at the right point of time for me, right? For example, if I am applying for a housing loan, let us say, or a car loan, let us say, right? Or if I am trying to figure out between two mutual funds which one I invest in and so on, right? What sort of data feedback is given to me by the bank or any NBFC for that matter, and at that particular point of time, which is the most relevant, right? Now, if thinking about it from a bank's perspective, if they've made a wrong decision for, let's say, a large enough loan, then that can certainly go wrong. Now, any investment which you make, right, will suddenly look good or suddenly look bad based on the how right the decision is or how timely the decision is. Right? In terms of technology costs, sorry, Manoj.
The use case defines the.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because see, IT costs that way, fortunately, and so on. The size of IT in every place has grown multifolds, but at the same time, the budgets obviously they have, but they have not grown this at the same extent because the technology has done a lot more enablement, right? And it's been I would say the ROI and technology has been reasonably good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone? I want to now kind of open the floor to you guys asking each other some questions. Now, I've been asking questions, and it's my job to prepare and ask questions. But I'm sure there are some interesting questions that you want to ask each other related to data. Does anyone want to throw a question to your colleagues?
Yeah, so Chaitanya, Anupam, I would like to ask you a question. So, like Prasanna has been saying, now data is naturally important, and you need to have sense of proper guides to understand importance of data for the business. Now, since you are setting up the new bank, do you have a separate IT person to understand and own data, or business guys are taking ownership of data? Because that also is not difficult.
Good question.
Yeah, I think we are still in the phase of deciding ownership of data. I think that's very difficult. That's the most complex place to do. So between data science, technology, business, where does it lie and what does it lie? But I think many of the governance rules actually at this point of time are being driven by the business side. Because there's a lot of banking interaction and we are leading the banking interaction side, and we need to take that into cognizance while we create it. The new regulations, DEPA coming into place, all the regulatory guidelines which are there. So that's what is happening at this point of time from an ownership perspective. But as Prasanna was saying, I think data governance people in the organization are required in future in terms of design, and large organizations will need it as to how data governance is happening. Uh, Again, it's a tricky piece as to where should it lie. Should it be independent? Should it be aligned to business, or should it be aligned to more of regulatory side? Is a question mark. But yeah, at this point of time, we are pretty much agile, and whatever is the definition of agile.
Agile and
Thank you.
fluid.
I think Manojji, one point which you asked, right? So I think as we start this journey, data handling and data lakes and your customer data we are accumulating somewhere. So tomorrow one data protection law will come, or something like a GDPR will come in India. How do we really create a mechanism to forget, right, for a, how to wipe off the data of a customer,
Okay. Yes.
or how I can create a business model wherein a advisory thing customer will do on his own device, rather than the data model we see. Typically today's data models are residing on some data center, right, or some cloud, and that's how his data is getting extracted and giving back to the customer. Now tomorrow's situation will be like, data will be, see, data, customer owns the data, right? So customer will say, can I not have that business model on my device itself, right? Let me play around, let me see how much data I can utilize my own data, and let me define those alerts, everything on my own. So that's how customer will become tomorrow more and more intelligent and will play around. Now during this exercise, if tomorrow customer says that I am leaving this bank, or I don't want you to take my data and utilize their data, so how do we really create that kind of architecture is very, very important. Forget to write for a customer, so that organization should not utilize their data again, and if they are utilizing, there has to be a customer consent. So during such thing, I think not only AI or big data, blockchain will also come to in a role, and based upon what is the demand from the customer, immediately that relevant smart contract will be executed, and data will not be vanished, or it will be flagged as a cannot be utilized, or that's how customer will say, yeah, this is a blockchain based system, and customer will trust. So that way, in the future, adoption of AI and plus blockchain may be a way to look at data protection or GDPR kind of a thing. That's the one view I wanted to give.
Thank you, Prasanna. That's very interesting, and perhaps that can be the topic for a future discussion that I will take up with my team.
Yeah.
Ram, do you want to ask any question to our esteemed panelists?
No, I think
Will help you serve this community, BFSI community, better.
no, I think obviously the comments have been fairly diverse, right from having a data architecture to about application modernization to what Anupam is looking for in terms of a neobank and so on. So, and there are gentlemen who have a huge amount of experience in this space. So, and most of them do know that, like I said, it's an evolution. So the technology obviously is available as we go. And there are numerous things happening at the cloud end, at the data end, like the behavioral data, like Akshay said, right? So the point is, there are definitely technologies available which enable the new form of technology computing, if you will. And I think we'd be very, very happy to have conversations with anybody as we go.
One of the interesting things that is also happening in data is when the data leaves your network beyond a particular amount of time, and if it is seen as redundant, now technologies are coming where this data which is moved out of your system, not into your cloud or into your ecosystem, is also possibility is to strike down those kind of data in case if it is being misused and kind of things. So those things probably, in my understanding, at a later date will become a lot more required, because people will be wanting to keep the privacy of their data to themselves, because in a cloud atmosphere, that is something where people would face challenges. Does anyone in the team also feel so?
I think I'll second that, Babu. I think it makes perfect sense, at least in the world of digitalization that we live in, where unconventional partnerships will mandate you to share or exchange data over the uncontrolled network zone or what have you. And given the opportunities that we have, there are a lot of technology-led business model or the collaboration models which are coming through. So I think around a couple of years back, there was a big revolution within our geography regarding, collaboration with fintechs and then trying to engage deeply in terms of, realizing the, the delivery of customer benefits more efficiently. But now we are taking a look at, surrogate sources of data coming in to help drive the credit assessment and a lot of middle office and back office processes, which is absolutely unprecedented. Now, it is very crucial, that, we understand as leaders that the traditional modus operandi of document your strategy, create an operating model, define the controls, have systems to manage those controls. Now, each of these pieces have to be delivered at a very accelerated pace. And that too, it has to evolve because operating models are not going to be static anymore. So today, if I'm tying up with a connector who is a Mason, and he's trying to pass on the lead through some WhatsApp, now I need to understand how do I protect the customer information while this exchange is going on. So the entire piece around federated data governance, what we traditionally, from the banking domain consider as the solution to such problems, it has to be completely reformed to fit these new nuances where the unconventional partnerships are driving the customer engagement. So yes, I think that problem is there and that has to be solved.
Cameras
Yeah, I
and
think
WhatsApp have
as they
made
say
data
now,
sharing so easy,
Yeah.
so easy, data leakage. It's really
Yeah.
a
Bring some
challenge.
point.
no, yeah, very much. So that's what they say, right? Now, CISO is the more crucial right now, and going forward, it's going to be a DPO, data privacy officer.
Okay.
In fact, it is like redefining data governance.
Yes.
We will have many new titles coming in our industry for sure.
We'll run out of letters, is what I said in one of the discussions.
Very true.
Let me thank you all very much for this very interesting conversation, for the sharing of these really new insights. And I'm glad to see that with all this banking sector the financial sector, BFSI sector, is going to take new shape, new strength. And that's good for banking frontiers. That's our job to keep track of what you guys are doing, what interesting things you guys are doing, and share it with the rest of the world. Thank you all. Thank you very, very much.